Hello everybody and welcome back to my Discord.py bot tutorial. We are now on episode 10 and I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Today we're going to be covering, like I said in the last video, today we're going to be covering persistent buttons. So if you followed along with the last episode, you were able to create buttons for your bot, but if you noticed, those buttons actually deprecate as you close the bot and reopen it. So if you restart the bot, it's actually, those buttons are no longer going to work. So what you're going to want to do is create something called persistent buttons, which will allow it to stay persistent even when you restart it. Obviously the buttons won't work while the bot is down, but when you restart it, when you turn it back on, it'll work after that. So you won't have to worry about issues like every time you restart the bot having to resend that message with the buttons. That one message can just stay there. So why you need this? If you go into my Discord server, it's actually a couple examples of why you need this. So for example, in my verify channel, I have this channel to make sure that no one's a bot. So they have to click this verify button every time. And obviously, every time my bot goes down, it's a replit bot. So it goes off not frequently, but it does go offline occasionally and then it comes right back up. So if there's any off time or downtime, I don't want to have to resend this message. You can see this message was sent on 9/27. And that's actually just because I had just redone part of the button system in it. That used to be up for literally 6+ months. It was the same exact message with the same exact button, and it still worked because every time the bot goes offline, I don't want to have to resend this message. I want to be able to leave this message up, and it still works regardless. And as you can see, it still works. So yeah, but I mean, whatever you're using it for is up to you, but I want these buttons. As you can see, the bot is online from our last episode, but as you can see, these buttons no longer work because they weren't in the persistent view class. So yeah, that's a quick little explanation why you'd maybe want persistent buttons or what they are, and now let's dive into how to actually do that. I will say creating the persistent buttons, almost all of it will be kind of hard for you guys to understand, and even I understand all of how it works, but I could never write it myself, just because there's parts that I've never really worked with before. For example, you have to start working with setup hooks, which is pretty much a function, like an automatic quarantine that's already called when the client, when the bot logs on, is a setup hook is called, and you have to kind of modify that to add the views to it. So that's pretty much how it works. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just copy in this persistent view class that I use for all of my bots. I literally just take it and copy it. I don't have it memorized because it works for all of them. So, which I probably should change and start writing it myself. But I usually just literally copy this persistent view class, and I'm quickly going to explain what it means. It may look scary to you guys, but trust me, I'm going to break it all down. Okay, let me explain what we're doing actually. So we're creating a new class and actually redefining our client variable. So if you remember in the very first episode, we created a client variable which we use for literally everything, and I told you guys we would use it for everything, and as you can see, we still use it. Client.run. Let me try to find something else. All of our stuff is created with client.tree.command, client.waitfor. All this stuff, we use client a lot. It's the word that means our bot. So we're actually going to redefine the word client, the variable client, and we're gonna add views to it on its setup hook, and that's what we're doing with this function right here. So let me go ahead and take you through this. And like I said in last episode, any class you create is always going to have an init function. So this init is going to define the self or the object that passes through it, and we're pretty much, as you can see, if you actually read through this, it looks very similar to when we created our client. When we created our client variable, it had the command prefix, the intents. It's literally this bit is literally just copied straight from the client declaration that we did in the first episode, except just a little bit different because I added when it can be mentioned. And yeah, this function right here, commands.when mentioned or, just means that it can work if you if I do at YouTube test, which is the name of my bot. If I do at YouTube test, obviously I don't have it implemented yet, but if I were to do at YouTube test roll 5, then this command would work as well. So if you want to implement that into your bot, you can. So when mentioned or, and then this would be the prefix. So anyways, then we have our intents. I explained with the intents, it allows you to do pretty much, it allows you to access some certain server information, like example, the message information. So you're able to actually track when a message is updated, when a user's updated, stuff like that. That's what intent is. It's fairly new. If you don't know, not a huge deal. And then the new thing that we have is this setup hook. And I actually pulled up documentation because I like knew about setup hooks, but I wasn't 100% sure on exactly like how they worked. But pretty much, if you kind of read through this, and I'll leave this down below, it is a quarantine to be called to set up the bot. By default, this is blank. So by default, this is blank, but in this class, we're actually redefining it, or not redefining it. We're adding to it and adding these views to it, if that makes sense. And this is what we're doing. We're performing an asynchronous setup after the bot is logged in, but before it's connected to the WebSocket, override it. And that's what we're doing. We're overriding it. So we do async def setup underscore hook, and we're going to pass in that self. Again, self is the object that we're passing through this class. And you see we have this callback, which is normally none. And then inside of this, we're going to add all the views of all the persistent buttons. So again, you don't really have to understand. I did my best to explain it. And like I said, I myself don't like 1000% understand all of these codes, all of these lines of code, sorry. I understand all like why someone did it and why it all makes sense, but I couldn't rewrite it for you, is my point. So inside of this self.add view, we're going to add the view that we created last episode, which is CF. And so now that we've added this view, it is now inside of this new persistent view bot client, if that makes sense. And it has a persistent view because we have the timeout set to none inside of the setup hook. It's kind of hard to grasp your head around, but it'll make sense on this last step that we do. So the last step is we're actually going to redefine client as persistent view bot. And so anytime we call client, we're creating, so when we run the client, we're creating an object or an instance of this class. And so that's an object of this class. And so we're redefining the setup hook when it is run to add these views to the setup hook, which means it'll always be stored in that same object, if that makes sense. Anyways, enough talking about this code. If you don't understand it, then I probably should just show you it in action. So self.view CF, and so now any button that comes out of the CF class will be persistent, except I'm pretty sure we're gonna get one error if I remember correctly, because self.view, yeah, okay, self dot add underscore view, the buttons have to have a custom ID set and no timeout. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So if I come up here, like I said, I mentioned custom ID in the last episode and I said we'd be using it. So now all of our buttons need to have their own custom ID, and you can literally set this to whatever you want. If you just want to number them off and list them off, you want to put a name to it, it really doesn't matter. But I'm just going to do custom ID 1, and then custom underscore ID is equal to 2. Let's try it again. And so now our two buttons have our custom ID, and now it should be working. If we go over here and we do /CF, you see everything should still work like normal. You just correctly use heads, tails, correctly use tails, incorrectly use heads. And now if we shut off the bot and we come back over here and we try to run a button, as you can see, it won't work, obviously, because the bot's offline. But then if we turn the bot back on, we should see that these buttons are persistent throughout it logging on and off. So let's go ahead and try it. Here's a moment of truth. And there we go. It still works even after we reset the bot. So yeah, that's how you create persistent buttons. And if you just want to know how to create persistent buttons, copy this code. And if you want to add more than one view, literally just go down here, self.add underscore view, and add another one. And you can keep copying this line, and that should say self. Whoops. And literally just keep copying this line as many views as you have. So if you have a bunch of commands that have a bunch of different buttons, then you'll literally just do this over and over again, and that'll add them to the setup hook. And the setup hook, again, is what's called when the bot is actually run, and we're just overriding that. So yeah, that's my best that is my best explanation as to how the persistent view bot works. Again, pretty hard to explain. I hope I did my best job. I tried as well as I could. So if you have any questions, ask down below. But again, if you just want persistent buttons, copy this code and this will work for you. Yeah, with that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Again, any questions, ask them down below or ask them in my support Discord server. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see the rest of this series. And with that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.